Hello, in this video we're going to discuss nuclear energy in heaven. So in the very first history, the sequence of technology developed skipped many places that you would think were quite illogical. So for example, the discovery of the horse, they used horses exclusively for a long time, and the automobile did not happen until after the nuclear bomb had been discovered, which is quite unusual. So the very first nuclear test that happened in heaven didn't happen on heaven itself, it happened on earth in the first history after humankind were wiped out. So this is the very first history, and the nuclear test was conducted in a desert. And what happened was God was watching from heaven through a wormhole when the test was carried out. The bomb was detonated and the flash blinded the scientist who had constructed the nuclear bomb, plus God. So God got blinded by it as well and severely injured. The blast killed the scientist, whose body died, and then his soul teleported back to heaven. Upon arrival in heaven, he found that everything was crazy because God was blinded by the flash. So, as I mentioned, souls need to get refilled with new bodies, and so the scientist had to wait until God's eyes had healed before he could have his soul refilled with a new body. So nuclear power was developed and nuclear reactors were built, and in the society it was found that nuclear energy had a lot of waste, and it was extremely bad because it's radioactive. So later in the first history, newer forms of energy were discovered, and the nuclear reactors were put in idle and then decommissioned, but the areas were left radioactive, and we're talking trillions of zeros of years ago, still being radioactive. So actually it would be 400 trillion years ago. Okay, so and so they're left with old nuclear power plants in heaven that are no longer in use, but it's still dangerous because of the presence of radiation. It wasn't until recently in this history that was discovered a way to decontaminate material completely of radiation, including metal, which seems impossible because radiation sticks to it. So they do not use nuclear power in heaven. Here on earth, for the tech tree, the splitting of the atom by Ernest Rutherford. Ernest Rutherford was an archangel from heaven, and the splitting of the atom was supposed to lead to just X-rays. But what happened instead was scientists got together and did experiments and came up with the atomic bomb. In the case of the United States, when the test was carried out, an angel was sent from heaven to give them the idea of wearing dark goggles, otherwise they'd all be blinded. And some of those scientists were important to history for the tech tree. So that's what happened there. It was never the intent for atomic bombs to be used in Japan during World War II from heaven. So it was believed that the war could end without the use of atomic weapons, and warnings were given to the United States President and their generals, but they ignored them, that's from heaven, and did it anyway. So it was against heaven's wishes for the atomic bombs to be used during World War II. And as a result, something had to be done, because education on radiation had not been given regarding how dangerous radiation is around people and how easily it spreads. So angels were sent from heaven in order to help assist people in learning about the dangers of radiation. So the discovery of that would lead to safety protocols and safer handling of the material. When things escalated after World War II and there was the Cold War, angels had to be sent from heaven in order to prevent an escalation between the communists, the Soviet Union, and the West. World War II and Japan's involvement was because of Satan's follower Ashura, who had managed to find his way to Japan and possessed a leader in Japan and was directly responsible for all the atrocities that happened as a result of World War II and prior to that. At some point, Ashura spoke to Adolf Hitler over the phone and realized that it was Satan on the other end of the phone, and decided to regroup with the other demons in Germany. And so Ashura traveled from Japan to Germany and possessed a judge who brought in executions with the guillotine. After World War II, some of Satan's followers were responsible for communism prior to World War II, and also responsible for the problems that existed between the Soviet Union and the United States. So throughout the Cold War, there was Satan's followers in the West and Satan, and some of Satan's followers in the Soviet Union that were in direct contact and in positions of leadership. So that is why things were the way they were regarding nuclear weapons and the Cold War. Fortunately though, things were controlled to a point in order to prevent an escalation of conflict, particularly during John F. Kennedy's time. So that is just a brief view of where nuclear energy was discovered in the first history and some of its uses, and the reason why things happened during World War II. I'm the Archangel Daniel, and I'm from heaven.